Hey Vinyl community, in this episode I am going to be going through the double live albums that I have in my collection. The double live album was a phenomenon of the 1970s. There were a few in the 1960s, but predominantly where you find a lot of the double live albums falls in the decade of the 70s. Didn't see too many in the 1980s as vinyl kind of transitioned into the CD format. I'm just going to go quickly through the first part of what I have here. I don't know that I'm going to make it through the entire alphabet. Not going to talk a whole lot about each one. Just pretty much going to show what I have in my collection. This is Aerosmith's Live Bootleg. Love the packaging on this one. Kind of made to look like it was a bootleg. Got some coffee stains here on the back. This one's notable for some really cool cover versions. They do a version of James Brown's Mother Popcorn. Their live staple, Train Kept a Rollin', I Ain't Got You, Chip Away the Stone, which actually didn't make it onto a, I don't want to call it a studio album, but the studio version, I don't think saw the light of day until one of the classics compilations in the early 80s, but this is definitely a cool one to own. The immortal Allman Brothers Band live at the Fillmore East. No rock collection is complete without this one. A couple tracks that take up an entire side of an album just to show how great they were at improvisation and stretching out and jamming. This is the Beach Boys live in concert, a great document when the Beach Boys were at the height of their touring years. This is definitely probably the best era of seeing the Beach Boys live in concert. Have some oldies on here, but there's also a lot of newer stuff, so they do a good job of balancing both the old and the new. This is David Bowie Stage. This kind of covers, it's got a couple of older tracks, but there's about 3 sides of stuff that of his more recent material up to this point, which kind of covers his Berlin period, Thin White Duke era, but it is a cool compilation to have. My dad had this record, and I grew up listening to it, and always been a big fan of Harry Chapin. This is his double live set called Greatest Stories Live. Got WOLD, I Want to Learn a Love Song, Cats in the Cradle, of course, Taxi's on here, so lots of great Harry Chapin music there. Dire Straits Live Alchemy. This has got everything up through the Love Over Gold album, but great material on here. Romeo and Juliet, Tunnel of Love, Telegraph Road is on here, Sultans of Swing. Doors, Absolutely Live, not absolutely the greatest live album ever, but it does kind of give you a flavor, a taste of what the Doors concerts were like in the late 1960s. A little too much Jim Morrison poetry for my liking, but it is what it is. This is Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Ladies and gentlemen, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, probably the longest title ever for a double live album. This is not even a gatefold, which is kind of disappointing. I wish it were. The albums actually come out at the top, but you know, Emerson, Lake and Palmer were great live, so that's an awesome album to have. Fleetwood Mac live. This has a scattering of material from their late 70s stuff. Not really anything in the way of stuff from the pre-Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks era, unless you count Oh Well. And there's a couple songs from the Tusk album and a cover of the Beach Boys, The Farmer's Daughter, the last track on this album. This is Grand Funk Live album, one of my favorite covers ever for a live album, showing them just going to town. And Grand Funk Railroad were natives of Flint, Michigan, so they got a lot of love here in Detroit. And that is a phenomenal live album and a great one to own, whether you're a Grand Funk fan or not. Gonna get into some Genesis here. Genesis, this is Seconds Out. This has Steve Hackett, but not Peter Gabriel, so this is their quartet. So some Peter Gabriel era stuff is represented, but there is also a pretty good helping of songs from the two quartet albums, which were Wind and Wuthering and Trick of the Tail. And Genesis, 3 sides live. Technically, there's only 3 sides of live stuff on here, but it is a double album. This kind of covers their late 70s, early 80s period up through Abacab. And there is a side of studio material. I just threw that in there because it was a double album. Kansas, 2 for the show. Kansas, another great progressive rock live ensemble and a great document of their show in the 70s. And what double live collection would be complete without Kiss Alive and Kiss Alive 2. Kiss Alive, of course, covered the first 3 Kiss albums, and then Alive 2 covered the Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun albums. And like Genesis 3 Sides Live, there is a side of studio material on here, so kind of cheating with this one, but it's a double live album. Again, I just tossed it in there. Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same. Pretty decent live album. Do we really need 30 minutes of Dazed and Confused? I don't think so. After a while, it just gets a little tiresome. Don't know that we needed Moby Dick on here. And if you've seen the CDs that have come out recently, they've got more material from these Madison Square Garden concerts, which I would have loved to have seen on the original album, but that wasn't the decision they made at the time because they were trying to sync the music with the film and whatnot. But anyway, Leonard Skinner, One More from the Road. And this, not sure when this was recorded, but I think it was shortly before their tragic plane crash. But great live document here. Everything that you would want live from Leonard Skinner you can find on here, and of course it closes out with Freebird, so how cool is that? This is Journey Captured, which covers the Steve Perry era up through the Departure album. Got a nice collection of songs there. Moody Blues, again, this is another one where it's 3 sides of live material and then 1 side of studio tracks, but still consider it a double live album, and this is really representative of the Moody Blues 60s and early 70s work. Rolling Stones, Love You Live, Andy Warhol cover here, and this has pretty much a greatest hits of the Rolling Stones through the mid 70s, and then there is also a side of material live at the Alamo Combo. So you've got Manish Boy, Cracking Up, Little Red Rooster, and Around and Around. Queen, Live Killers, fantastic live album. Everything that you'd ever want in a Queen album. We Will Rock You, Death on Two Legs, Killer Queen, Bicycle Race, You're My Best Friend, Love of My Life, Keep Yourself Alive, Don't Stop Me Now, Brighton Rock, Bohemian Rhapsody, We Will Rock You. Unbelievable how many hits are on this album. Bob Seeger, Live Bullet. I believe this was recorded at Cobo Hall. This is the live album that helped break Bob Seger into the mainstream, one of the greatest live albums of all time. And this is another live album. This is called Nine Tonight. Not nearly as great as Live Bullet is, but still a pretty cool double live album to have. This is, the name of this band is Talking Heads, and this has got 2 sides of material, and you've got a full band here. This was kind of a stadium show, and then a more intimate live setting, which is represented by the photographs on the back. But very cool live Talking Heads album. I kind of prefer this to Stop Making Sense, a little more raw. And the last one I'm going to show on this episode is Who's Last. Double live record from the Who's, what at the time was their farewell tour. Not the greatest live versions of these songs, but you do have their entire career represented. Got Kenny Jones on drum. Everyone was complaining that they should have put out more concerts with Keith Moon, but it is what it is. There was a live show also that accompanied this. I remember seeing it on HBO back in like 82 or 83, I think it was. But if you're a Who fan, still a cool one to own. So anyway, that's just kind of a bunch of double live records that I have. Let me know in the comment section. What double live albums do you have? And did you see any of these bands in concert? Whatever you feel like commenting on. Take care.